готовы.
У меня нету зума с...
Testing your playback sound system. Testing your playback sound system.
Да, Zoom ссылка решим. Подскажите,
Testing your
пожалуйста,
playback
на
sound system.
английском. А меня слышно?
Да, слышно.
Ребята, к ролику текст есть, да?
Девушки, извините, слушайте, этот ролик, ну, изначальный, к нему у вас нет текста, только видео, да? Правильно ли я поняла?
Ролик, он тоже только на английском. Русского текста нету, да?
Да, нам надо английский текст, но просто у вас нет, например, там в Word
Что-то
ссылка.
слышно очень плохо, я почти не слышу.
Да, а сейчас?
Сейчас лучше.
Я слышу и хорошо.
Мгм.
Да, у вас нет документа там с текстом написанным?
У меня только сценарий.
Значит, текст ролика на английском нет?
А вот верхняя ссылка, там текст, но на английском.
Да, там есть текст, можно с английского через переводчик
Всё,
прочитать.
Верхняя ссылка.
Да,
Сейчас,
спасибо.
хорошо, спасибо.
Где красным и розовым выделено. Ну, там текст.
Да, хорошо, уже есть все. Спасибо.
Можно уточнить, привет. Есть два видео, которые Белов и Шаратони, и есть еще какой-то ролик. И вот можно, пожалуйста, текст на этот ролик? Если я правильно поняла по материалам.
Настя, привет.
Да, привет,
Ролик, если ты смотришь короткий план, видишь, где написано короткий план в русском?
Да, это просто
Сценарии.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Roundtable. Today's Roundtable is continuing the conference Global Crisis. This already affects everyone. And as we prepared the conference, we've met so many people, so many different specialists. And of course, the timing of the conference was limited, but we're going to follow up with people from all around the world, gathering all of them every day at this conference. So today, let's take a look at the conference itself and how it went. We have a short video to present for you, and let's begin with the video. Hello everyone and welcome to the Roundtable. Today's Roundtable is continuing the conference Global Crisis. This already affects everyone. And as we prepared the conference, we've met so many people, so many different specialists. And of course, the timing of the conference was limited, but we're going to follow up with people from all around the world, gathering all of them every day at this conference. So today, let's take a look at the conference itself and how it went. We have a short video to present for you, and let's begin with the video.
Modern civilization has entered the stage of instability and global crisis.
The future has already arrived. In the field of artificial intelligence, I really understand that today we see tremendous opportunities and possibilities.
We will have human-level intelligence in terms of problem solving, and that we could have that pretty soon.
And in the consumer society we live in today, it will leave us jobless.
Hello, you are fired.
Every owner of some corporation will create a number of machines, fill it with artificial intelligence, so a human being will simply become out of demand in this chain. Millions of people around the world have already become climate refugees. The events are developing at a shocking speed. The force of cataclysms is growing in progression. Their frequency is increasing every day.
What you can see here is in red are the amount of this particular characteristic of the planet, that is left. And we can see that in many cases we have lost more than 60, 50, 60, 70% of this particular ecosystem or species.
We're eating our planet. Maybe it's time we realize our responsibility and solve our problems together.
Because sudden large-scale natural disasters occur on the planet on a daily basis. And there are fewer and fewer safe places.
Soon everyone will be hungry, barefoot, naked. Because of consumerism, we are the generation that will see it through. Either we can stand up to it, or it will end with us.
180 countries on the platform of ALLATRA International Public Movement.
It is broadcast live on thousands of YouTube and other streaming channels. Moreover, thanks to volunteers from around the world who understand the importance of this event, the conference is simultaneously translated into 72 languages.
The main value in a creative society is human life, your life, the life of your children, your loved ones.
Only together can we find solutions. And we all want peace and happiness. And together, we can create this world.
As you can see, this conference brought up some very hot topics, not just hot topics. It's the question of human existence in the nearest future. And it's very important to talk about this thing. On one hand, AI can be a threat to our work, our jobs, but on the other hand, it's the only way to overcome the challenges that we see in ecology and climate crisis. Jonathan, please.
Yes. So as we can see, and that's why we are here today during this international roundtable, the conference is not over. We want to really continue to take up on the topic of this global crisis in this international roundtable that will be actually holding every day just to go deeper into those topics and to make sure that everybody, as we say, 180 countries, more than 72 languages translated during the conference, we want to make sure that this message and those informations are spreading as much as possible. There is a lot of very interesting information, fact, and speaker from different countries that are ahead of us with those roundtables. So the idea is really to update this conference on how important it was to be spreading that knowledge and to continuing the momentum and deep dive into those topics. So one of the topics was actually about AI, and it's not just a hot topic, it might be a vitally important theme for our civilization. In the nearest future, it's not something that we're thinking about like very far ahead. It's really something that we can already touch in some way. We're already in it. So we would like to hear back from one of the speakers, a specialist in AI field. So welcome, Peter. Welcome again after your participation yesterday. Your speech was very inspiring, and for myself, for many people as well. So what makes you so optimistic about AI, and what would be the most obvious benefits for all of humanity? Can you tell us more about it, please?
Yes, certainly. You know, what I hear at the conference is a lot of gloom and doom. And, you know, I don't really see it that way. I think a lot of the predictions
Ребята,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Roundtable. Today's Roundtable is continuing the conference, Global Crisis. This already affects everyone. And as we prepared the conference, we've met so many people, so many different specialists. And of course, the timing of the conference was limited, but we're going to follow up with people from all around the world, gathering all of them every day at this conference. So today, let's take a look at the conference itself and how it went. We have a short video to present for you, and let's begin with the video.
Modern civilization has entered the stage of instability and global crisis.
The future has already arrived. In the field of artificial intelligence, I really understand that today we see tremendous opportunities and possibilities.
We will have human-level intelligence in terms of problem solving, and that we could have that pretty soon.
And in the consumer society we live in today, it will leave us jobless.
Hello, you are fired.
Every owner of some corporation will create a number of machines, fill it with artificial intelligence, so a human being will simply become out of demand in this chain. Millions of people around the world have already become climate refugees. The events are developing at a shocking speed. The force of cataclysms is growing in progression. Their frequency is increasing every day.
What you can see here is in red are the amount of this particular characteristic of the planet, that is left. And we can see that in many cases we have lost more than 60, 50, 60, 70% of this particular ecosystem or species.
We're eating our planet. Maybe it's time we realize our responsibility and solve our problems together.
Because sudden large-scale natural disasters occur on the planet on a daily basis. And there are fewer and fewer safe places.
Soon, everyone will be hungry, barefoot, naked. Because of consumerism, we are the generation that will see it through. Either we can stand up to it, or it will end with us.
180 countries on the platform of ALLATRA International Public Movement.
It is broadcast live on thousands of YouTube and other streaming channels. Moreover, thanks to volunteers from around the world who understand the importance of this event, the conference is simultaneously translated into 72 languages.
The main value in a creative society is human life, your life, the life of your children, your loved ones.
Only together can we find solutions. And we all want peace and happiness. And together we can create this world.
As you can see, this conference brought up some very hot topics, not just hot topics. It's the question of human existence in the nearest future. And it's very important to talk about this thing. On one hand, AI can be a threat to our work, our jobs, but on the other hand, it's the only way to overcome the challenges that we see in ecology and climate crisis. Jonathan, please.
Yes. So as we can see, and that's why we are here today during this international roundtable, the conference is not over. We want to really continue to take up on the topic of this global crisis in this international roundtable that will be actually holding every day. Just to go deeper into those topics and to make sure that everybody, as we say, 180 countries, more than 72 languages translated during the conference, we want to make sure that this message and those informations are spreading as much as possible. There is a lot of very interesting information, facts, and speakers from different countries that are ahead of us with those roundtables. So the idea is really to update this conference on how important it was to be spreading that knowledge and to continuing the momentum and deep dive into those topics. So one of the topics was actually about AI, and it's not just a hot topic. It might be a vitally important theme for our civilization. In the nearest future, it's not something that we're thinking about like very far ahead. It's really something that we can already touch in some way. We're already in it. So we would like to hear back from one of the speakers, a specialist in AI field. So welcome, Peter. Welcome again after your participation yesterday. Your speech was very inspiring, and for myself, for many people as well. So what makes you so optimistic about AI, and what would be the most obvious benefits for all of humanity? Can you tell us more about it, please?
Yes, certainly. You know, what I hear at the conference is a lot of gloom and doom. And, you know, I don't really see it that way. I think a lot of the predictions in terms of AI are not really spot on. For example, that we will have, you know, one AI that will take over the world. That seems a very unlikely scenario, just for a number of technical reasons. But there's also an important distinction that needs to be made in terms of almost all of the AI you see today is narrow AI. And this is an important distinction. The AI is built to solve one particular problem at a time. And it's really the human that figures out how to use artificial intelligence technology to solve that particular problem. Those AI, those narrow AI, do not pose any kind of risk outside of the specific domain that they were built for. And that's very manageable. You know, it's basically an ordinary engineering risk that you have. Now, the real artificial intelligence, or what we call AGI, artificial general intelligence, an intelligence that can learn and reason and think and sort of grow in its knowledge and ability by itself, is, you know, at the moment, very few people are working on that technology. So that's not an imminent risk. Now, as I've said, I believe it's possible to develop this more general AI that can really think and reason, because the current AIs can't do that. Now, that kind of AI, the artificial general intelligence, once that is developed, one of the key benefits is it will help us think clearer. It'll help us have better information, because obviously one of the things we as the human race is suffering from is a lot of misinformation and irrationality, that people, you know, act out of fear, out of ignorance, you know, out of whatever. And I think that kind of AGI, as we see that, I also believe it will become available to a large number of people, you know, like the internet is available to people, but it'll help us sift out more accurate information, or help us be able to think things through better. And of course, it'll help us with scientific research to address the problems that we have. And, as I've said, one of the key problems that we're facing that we're not very good at right now is governance. To me, the biggest problem I see in the world is the lawlessness of politicians. And I think if people can, really use their rationality and reason and say, why are so many people poor? Well, the main reason is that individuals aren't given the freedom to lift themselves out of poverty because of governments and because of the corruptions and lawlessness of governments. But, that's sort of a particular view that I have, that I believe an AI would help more people realize that where the real problems lie, whether it's what I'm speculating or saying here or other things. So I'm very optimistic that when we get artificial general intelligence, it will really help us, and it'll be much more generally available, not just, to one person that'll dominate it.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you so much. It definitely would be a great help when it comes to governance and research in the field of climate and also ecology. And ecology was one of the topics brought up at the conference, and we see how many species are being extinguished and how much humans are polluting in our world today. And we would like to continue with the topic of ecology and ask Gerardo, one of the speakers at the conference, and expand what he had to say at the conference. Gerardo, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. It has been a very interesting conference. Well, I like to say that I agree completely with Peter Boss, but there is only one thing that worries me, that the extinction crisis is so imminent and is as bad in terms of the scope and the magnitude than the climate emergency. If we lose the species at the rate that we're losing them, there will be really little hope that we will be able to maintain the conditions of the conditions that make Earth habitable for general plants and animals and for us. So we are losing a species at a rate that hasn't been lost since the last 65 million years. And this has a big impact, not only obviously in the aesthetics and the beauty of the world, but also on all the ecosystem services, all these benefits that we get from the plants and animals. And basically, I think it's very important, this kind of conference, to raise the awareness that by losing so many species, we are eroding the capabilities of life on Earth, including human life, of course. So, and the window of opportunity to save these species, more than 15-20 years maximum. So it is very important that we realize that in terms of the artificial intelligence and all of the other important developments that can help us to eventually have a better understanding and better decisions, we'll need to do that. We need to be able to stop and reduce the extinction crisis. And I'm not talking only about the species. One important thing that I didn't mention yesterday is that we're losing billions of populations. And I give you quickly this hypothetical scenario. We may not lose any species at all, but if we lose most of the populations of all the species, we will be in a very complicated scenario. For instance, there is no, it doesn't matter that there are forests, boreal forests in other parts of Europe if the ones in Russia are gone, because the ecosystem services they provide locally and regionally will be gone. So this is very important that we understand that the extinction crisis goes from local to regional in terms of the species and populations, and then to global. And it's very important that we don't focus only on losing the species completely, but on losing the population that are the ones who regulate climate, give us provision of water and so on at the regional and the local level. And finally, I like to say that although this is a gloom and doom scenario, there is still time. If we put our act together, if we manage to maintain all these species and we manage to maintain most of the populations, there will be plenty of opportunity to recover them and to do much better decisions. I completely agree with Peter Voss that most of the problems are the government. The governments are taking really poor decisions on terms of what has to be done, and most of the population, most of the human population, were suffering for those bad decisions. So to finish, I like to say that for me, the extinction crisis is as important as the climate crisis, but it's more urgent, but it's happening faster. And once we get the full impact of the climate disruption, many of these species already in trouble will be even in more trouble. They will be more at the brink of extinction. But on the other hand, many species that right now are more or less safe will be pushed towards extinction because of those changes. To me, this is probably right now the most serious challenge for humanity, to stop the extinction crisis.
Thank you for your insight on this topic. And basically, I would like to summarize a little bit on both of the answers, because it seems that there is a common denominator, of course, and that make it more positive overall, is that it seems that either the way to use AI or the way to avoid having too many species being extinct in the near future, it seems that there is still something that we can do about it as a unit, as a unity of people, understanding those problems and making sure that we can move forward in the right direction, as we are absolutely not doing right now. So thank you for those answers and this actually a piece of positivity into this very kind of negative topic. But we are still capable of doing something about it. I would like to continue with the topic and ecology and pass on and give some time to Nashingen, a professor from Mauritius, to talk about biodiversity in his region. I mean, we know that biodiversity is crucial to preserve. So could you tell us a little bit more about this from your perspective and the impact that currently the biodiversity can have from the consumerism society that we are in at the moment? And what is your perspective from the future, and how could we maybe make something better?
Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. So first of all, I would like to commend the organizers for the online conference of yesterday. I think overall it was a very successful one, in spite of the fact that, according to me, it was a bit too long. It's not easy for, especially with the time zone problem, for people to sustain and be tuned for such a long time. But I think the positive, on the positive side, very positive side, we had a sort of opportunity to hear different voices, different specialists, and that was very good. Now, coming to the two topics, ecology and also AI. So regarding ecology, Mauritius, as you know, is a dot in the Indian Ocean, small island. And the smaller you are, and if you've got an island economy, I think you've got more vulnerabilities, more than other countries. And Mauritius is part, from a political point of view, Mauritius is part of Africa. And when I compare Africa with other continents, other places, this is the continent which has not been subject to overexploitation and rapid economic development. You're still behind compared to other countries. Obviously, when you look at African countries, including Mauritius, we have subscribed to a number of conventions, number of treaties on environment to preserve biodiversity, be it at the level of the UNEP, or be it at the level or at the international level, multilateral level, or at the regional level. I mean, in spite of our sort of frailties and vulnerabilities, African countries, and even what we call the small island states, the SIDS, they have been making a lot of efforts. But unfortunately, you see, if you look at the divide which exists at the level of countries, so in spite of the fact that we should have, according to me, what we qualify as S&D, special and differential treatment, we see that some of the major players, some of the major countries, I won't mention names, unfortunately, they don't want to shoulder their responsibilities. On the contrary, they are pushing their development, economic development, to its extreme, and we developing countries, we African countries and island states, we are still lagging behind, and we have to make the same sort of sacrifice. And this is simply unsustainable in the medium term and in long term. And this is where, yesterday, I alluded to this problem. We have a sort of failure of the multilateral and international system. Be it the UN, be it the UNEP, the Kyoto Convention, you just mentioned it. Unfortunately, many of these organizations have become like a sort of talk shops. So you can rest assured that African countries, small developing states, islands, we are all for solidarity, to make sacrifice, to preserve the biodiversity. And I can tell you, in my country itself, at least at the level of environment, we are taking the right steps. And many African countries are taking the right steps. They are doing the best. But unfortunately, they are not getting the necessary support from developed countries. So maybe we can probe more at a later stage if we can go in more depth on these issues. Now, coming to AI, what I noticed yesterday, as if we've got two extremes. One extreme saying that AI will bring miracles, and another extreme looking at only the dark side of AI. For me, as a lawyer, being located in a developing country, but who has been traveling also in different countries, I think we have to be careful. Because if you look at the history of humanity, have we shifted from the different stages of development, from Stone Age to agriculture, industrialization, telecommunication, and today we are talking a lot about AI. Yes, we are all for AI. But if you look at the sequence of development, what happened? Those countries, just like in environment, for example, many of these countries who are now developed states, they have been exploiting the environment to its maximum. And now they are telling us, don't do it. They've done it, they've become rich at the expense of the poor environment. Now they are telling developing states, don't do it. So I think we have to be equitable. Now, my apprehension, I know the multiple advantages of AI, but at the same time, we know the danger. The divide which exists for the time being in the field of IT, I think this would be even more exacerbated, would become even more acute with AI. So what we need at world level is to find a platform. I don't know whether it's going to be the UN or any other organization, the WIPO, the ITU, I don't know where, to find a platform where there can be a sort of equitable distribution. Now, very often in international fora, we've been talking about transfer of technology. We've been bragging a lot, unfortunately. But when it comes to ground realities, there has never been any genuine bona fide transfer of technology. So the divide which exists at international level, will also be reflected at national level, which means that those who are rich would become richer at domestic level, and the same thing will happen at the international level, where countries which are very rich will become richer, will exploit others. So the same thing will happen at international, regional, and domestic level. And at a time where people are not having free dinners, lunches per day, in many countries, including some of the developed countries. But some people in industry, in IT, in technology, we are talking about futuristic things without trying to solve the basic problems. So for the time being, I will rest here and we may continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Narshigin. It's definitely a huge problem, and we see that the gap between the developed countries and the level of living in other states where we have globally estimated 800 million people not having enough food and water resources, and we're talking about over-consuming in developed countries. That is definitely a problem, and it seems like the gap just keeps on growing. On the other hand, we still see the terrible situation in ecology as well. Let me come back to that topic. And the reason the consumerism, so going for the profit, people don't care about anything else. Unfortunately, in today's kind of society, not the human life, not ecology, not climate, but profit is #1 driver for consumerist format of living. And we have another participant, the documentary director from Japan, who filmed multiple documentaries about ecology. We have a video prepared from Shiratori. Please, let's watch it right now.
First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm a film director and dubbing actor from Japan. My name is Tetsu Shiratori. I'm a dubbing actor. I've dubbed Michael Jackson's voice into Japanese, and I'm also making films that focus on our planet and the path we need to follow to become a sustainable world. I've made a total of 30 films on the subject, and I'm currently working on my latest film, Zero Waste Plus, Sustainable Lifestyle. My job is to show as many people as possible how we can make our planet a sustainable world of coexistence and shared prosperity. I have been covering the situation over the past few years and have concluded that the Earth is in a very difficult situation. Last year, I went on a 7-hour voyage on a yacht to cover the state of the ocean. I've interviewed professional divers who have been swimming for almost 40 years, and they said that 20 years ago, the ocean was really beautiful. But since 2000, it's been in a terrible state. As explained by the divers, the reason for this is that the corals on the Japanese islands of Okinawa and Yaeyama began to die en masse due to this phenomenon of bleaching. And now, 70% of the corals are dead. 70% of the corals have died. What is happening to coral reefs on the south coast of the Pacific Ocean is a consequence of the deterioration of seawater. The disappearance of seaweeds such as wakame and kelp is also progressing. Wakame and kelp release substances that are very important for creating the atmosphere, so their disappearance has a huge impact on the atmosphere. I was particularly surprised when I was told about the map that sailors used when they crossed the Pacific Ocean. It is called the Pacific Pilot Chart and has been used for more than 500 years, since the time of Columbus, when sailors recorded the directions experience of all the winds since they did not change. And suddenly, over the past 10 years, the winds and currents have changed. And when the winds change, it means that there are drastic changes in the Earth's atmosphere itself. Speaking about the changes, the divers also said that since they regularly measure the temperature of the ocean, they know that in winter, the temperature usually drops below 10 degrees Celsius, but now the temperature has stopped dropping. Now it does not decrease, but remains about above 10 degrees. The fact that the temperature of the seawater does not fall means that as a result of convection, due to which hot air goes up and cold air goes down, cold waves and strong winds near the surface of the ocean will increasingly occur, which will provoke the appearance and intensification of various hurricanes and typhoons. Through this interview, I realized that something terrible in the ocean. But you know what? It's not just in the ocean. Last year, I also learned that the acreage of relic forests in the Japanese mountains have decreased. These are ancient forests, and although there are younger forests planted by man, valuable relic forests are disappearing. In addition to this, there's the fact that the fruits of the trees become hollow. This means that the flowers of these trees were poorly pollinated, which means that many insects are disappearing in the forest, and they are food for birds, not only for birds, but also for rabbits and other animals. And they enrich the ecosystem. They enrich the soil, and these insects are disappearing. Thanks to this interview, I realized that terrible things are happening on Earth right now. First of all, it is important to know about the state of the Earth. It's obvious what's going on is crazy. Just a few days ago, there were terrible floods in Germany and in Japan too. As a result of a landslide in Atami in Japan, many people died, and in the future, these phenomena will occur more and more often. This is a sign that the Earth is now experiencing a climate crisis. We are now at the stage where we need to take specific action to preserve our planet. How can we protect our planet? The key in concrete actions to achieve this goal is microorganisms. In fact, there are beneficial microorganisms that use radioactivity as an energy source. Such organisms really exist. What do you think happened when they were applied? When they were sprayed on an area the size of 2 stadiums, the radioactivity in that place began to decrease. Geiger counter readings fell, and in the plant crops that were grown there, the level of bacterial, that is the level of activity of the radioactive body, was not detected at all. Besides, it allowed for a larger yield than usual because radiation was used as an energy source. And this is where hope begins. It is the possibility of living in abundance. But you know what? Such things are never reported by the media. Such information does not extend beyond Japan. After all, society is now run by money. It is the monetary interest that drives us. The whole world is being destroyed by the vested interests of companies and states. To get out of this situation, I believe that people with the same mindset should communicate with each other. I also want to make my own contribution to the development of the world. I want the earth to remain beautiful and full of life. And if we all unite with each other, then everything will be fine. We will succeed. The matter of connecting with other people who care. Let us unite for the good of the planet. Let's love each other. Let's laugh with each other. Let's stop supporting a civilization full of fear. Let's love each other and be grateful to each other. This is the only way to peace.
ガイガーカウンターは下がります。さらに、そこで取れる作物取れるんですけど、ベクレル値って言ってその放射能の値がわかるんですけど、一切検出されません。それで検出されないどころかですね、放射能をエネルギー源に変えてますから、通常よりも大きな作物になるんです。 そしてそこからですね、生き物たちが豊富になってきて、希望が始まってるんです。でもね、こういうものはね、マスコミから一切報道に出てきません。結局今、人間が支配されてるのはお金なんですね。お金の利害。それによって支配されてるんです。で、そうなることで、一企業がどうやって利益を生み出すか、それから国家がどうやって利益を生み出すかみたいな思想に、全世界がこう、蝕まれている状況にあります。で、そこからまず脱していくためには、そこを踊り出たですね、考え方を持った人たちがやっぱり繋がっていくことだって思ってます。私も、世界に貢献したいと思ってます。この地球が美しいまんま残るように。そして今からみんながね、繋がっていけば、まだまだ大丈夫です。きっとね、うまくいきます。で、そうなるためには、心ある人たち同士が本当に繋がってですね、地球のために繋がりましょうよ。お互い愛し合いましょうよ。お互い笑い合いましょうよ。今のね、恐怖に満ちた文明をやめましょうよ。もうね、お互い好きになってね、感謝し合いましょう。それの方がよっぽど平和になりますよ。
Спасибо большое, господин Шаратори.
So much, Mr.
Перед
Shratori.
тем, как это очень интересные факты
This is really interesting facts.
интересный посыл и ваши слова про
Interesting
объединение. Они
speech. The
действительно
words
резонируют.
about unity. They
Я хотела бы поделиться своими впечатлениями
I
от
would like to share
конференции,
with you
которая
my
прошла вчера.
impressions of the conference which
Это
took place
грандиозное
yesterday.
событие, которое
It was a
действительно
tremendous
может
event
помочь спасти
which
все
truly
человечество.
can
Это как
help
крик
to
человеку, как стоит на
save
краю обрыва
whole
и с
humanity. It's
завязанными
like a
глазами и не
scream
видит,
of a
что
person
следующий шаг он
who
делает,
stands
этот
on
обрыв.
at the edge
Это
of the
крик
cliff with the
на помощь
blindfold, and
ему,
he doesn't
чтобы
see
он
the
развернулся
next
и пошел
steps
в другую сторону.
into the abyss.
Эту
And this is a
конференцию
cry so that the
организовывали
person would turn
тысячи
around and go the other way.
стран
This
мира.
conference was
72
organized by
языка перевода. Это
thousands of volunteers in more than
колоссальный объем
180
работы, который
countries and
люди
72
доброй
languages of
воли в
simultaneous
свободное от работы время
interpretation.
делали
This
для
is a
того,
colossal
чтобы
amount of
этот
job,
крик
and
был
the
услышан
people do
всем
it in their
остальным
free
человечеством.
from work time.
Поэтому
Everything is done so
действительно
this
самое важное
cry, so
событие,
this
которое могло
scream
вообще
would be heard
произойти
for the rest
для
of
нашего
humanity. So this
человечества.
is the most important
И я
event that
выражаю
could
огромную
actually
благодарность
take
всем, кто
place. And I
организовывал
express my deep
участвовал,
gratitude
всем
to all those who
спикерам.
participated in
И я
organizing
также
these events and
благодарна
to all
спикерам, которые
speakers. And I
участвовали
also
сегодня и выступают
grateful to those speakers who
касательно
participate today
экологической повестки. Это
and
действительно тоже
talk
очень
about
страшная
ecological
проблема, то, насколько мы уничтожили,
issues. This is
убили, съели
really
нашу
a
планету.
terrible problem, how we
И
destroyed,
вопрос
killed, and eaten our
исчезновения
planet. And the
биоразнообразия,
issue
браконьерства
about the
и того, как мы
extinction of the
относимся друг к
biodiversity,
другу, относимся к другим живым
poach, and how
существам, так,
we actually
так
treat
не
each other
поступают
and
настоящие люди.
other creatures. This is not
Но что
how
мне хотелось также
real human
сказать,
beings
что
should
на
behave.
конференции,
But I
кроме
also
вопросов
want
экологии,
to
мы поднимали
say
также и
that
вопрос
except
климатического
the
кризиса,
environmental
потому
issues,
что
we raised the
сейчас
topic of climate
эти темы,
crisis,
как
because
правило,
now
в
these
СМИ
topics
показываются как
usually
одной
in
проблемой,
mass
но на самом
media
деле
are,
это две.
are
И
shown as
климатическая
one
проблема, она
problem,
намного
but in fact
страшнее.
these are
Потому
two
что если
different
экология
problems, and
— это то,
climatic problem
на
is
что мы
much
можем повлиять,
worse,
что мы
because
сделали
if
сами, как мы
ecology is
сами
we
уничтожили
can
планету,
influence because we
как
destroy the planet
мы
ourselves,
загадили ее химикатами, мусором,
actually
микропластиком, мы
constantly
начали вырубать
polluted with
леса и уничтожать почву
chemistry, with
плодородную,
garbage, we
то вопрос климата — это то, на что мы не влияем.
destroy
И
forests,
то,
and
что
exactly the
сейчас
issue of
происходит все
climate
больше
is
и больше
something which
ураганов,
we can't
наводнений, но не только
influence
их,
on. We
и землетрясений, и
have much
извержений
more
вулканов, и
hurricanes,
магнитное поле
floods,
слабеет. Многие другие признаки
earthquakes,
показывают
and
на то, что это действительно происходит
magnetic field of the
внутри
earth
нашей
is
планеты, что
weakening,
причина — это
and this is
внутри.
indeed the
На
process which
конференции
take place
поднимали
inside
вопрос,
the
что
earth, and we
причиной
raised
основной
this
является
issue on the
12-тысячная
conference.
цикличность,
The
это
reason for
климатизм.
that this
Вот в
is
результате этой цикличности изменения
cyclicity,
происходят внутри
12,000
планеты.
year
Я как
cycle,
геолог
and
могу вам сказать, что
process take place
представьте нашу
inside the
Землю. Вы
earth.
видели
I am as a
фотографии из космоса нашей
geologist
Земли?
can
Так вот,
tell you
мы
that
— это
imagine yourself the
тончайшая
planet Earth.
пленка, как
Have you
пленка
seen
на
the
мыльном пузыре.
images of the
То
Earth
есть
from the
это наша
space?
атмосфера,
We
настолько
are
тонкая она по
like a
отношению к тому,
film on
насколько
the soap
гигантская
bubble.
наша
Our
планета. И
atmosphere
как можно
is
представить,
just a
что эта тонкая пленка
film on a soap
может
bubble,
влиять
and
больше,
our
чем сама
planet
масса
is
всей
enormous. And how
атмосферы,
you can
всей
imagine
imagine that this thin film is influencing huge Earth and actually makes some impact. These are processes which takes place inside the Earth. The Earth's core is shifting. Dissonance takes place and causes
микроколебания. И в результате
all these processes cause micro
vibrations.
And heating occurs exactly from the inside of the planet, from the depth of the planet. And Mr. Sharatori just now mentioned the events, huge zones. Scientists find where the temperature in the world ocean is increased in more than 10 degrees Celsius. This is impossible. This phenomenon is being studied since 1980s. Scientists have noticed. Could you please show the first image? Here you see these places, anomalous areas, where the world's ocean temperature is increasing. And one of them is near Antarctica, which factories are heat up their ocean water. It is prohibited to build there something in Antarctica. What heats up the water? Please look near the Greenland. In the middle of Pacific Ocean, there are huge areas that are heated up, and the water increases in more than 10 degrees Celsius. And this is obvious that in these areas it goes from the depth because the water goes from bottom up. This is obvious phenomena which is related exactly to the heating the water up from the bottom. We'll see in the next pictures, the graphs, how it all increased. As you can see, in 2015, it started to grow rapidly and more sharply. Show the next image. At first, we saw this blob or these drops. Here we see the example near the New Zealand, where at first scientists found this giant blob of
Покажите, пожалуйста, следующий слайд. Здесь приведен график повышения теплосодержания глубоких слоев океанской воды. То есть это теплосодержание растет. Теплая вода, она не может по физике опускаться сверху вниз. То есть она поднимается снизу вверх, расширяясь. Пожалуйста, следующий слайд.
Sorry, according to physics, water can't go from
насколько сильно тает западная Антарктида.
And in this image, we see how Western Antarctica is melting in relation to Eastern Antarctica. Indicates that Antarctica itself melting exactly because of the fact that from the inside there is increased heating. Here we see this is map where Antarctica is melting the most. These huge red spots, exactly in such places where it heats up. Exactly in such areas, it is a huge volcanic valley with a large tectonic faults. And scientists discovered that exactly under the Western Antarctica there is a huge magma chamber.
И что интересно, что из глубин Антарктиды увеличился поток
нейтрино, указывает нам также, что внутри под Антарктидой началось движение магмы, потому что эти нейтрино из глубин, из недр Земли, не из космоса. And it goes from the inside the Earth, not from the space, not from the outer space. They are exactly
Покажите следующий слайд, пожалуйста.
Здесь
также показано, что ученые обнаружили, что под Гренландией располагается плюм, и также его тепло распространяется на центральную часть Гренландии, поэтому под льдами
the heat spreads the central part of Greenland. Under the Greenland, they found deep lakes. And we are in a huge danger because this magma goes higher, rises. And when it reaches underwater,
это будет совершенно колоссальный
in the
объем
groundwater,
влаги, который
it
наполнит
will
нашу
start to
атмосферу, начнет выливаться
evaporate.
ливневыми
It will be a
дождями,
huge
наводнение
amount of
усилится в разы,
moisture,
и это может быть
which
значительный,
will
даже
result
значительный
in
подъем уровня Мирового
pouring
океана.
rains and floods, and it will
И, пожалуй,
eventually will
последний
end up
слайд, который я хотела бы
to the
показать,
rise
это
of
о
the
том,
level
что
of the world
сейчас
ocean.
регистрирует, что тепло больше
The
всего
next image
нагревается именно северная часть
is
нашей
exactly
планеты.
about the
И это из-за
fact
того,
that
что ядро
right now,
смещено как раз
exactly the
в
northern
сторону севера,
part
при
of our
этом
planet
подъем
heats
магмы
up the
идет со всех
most.
сторон, потому что
And magma
это является
actually
результатом
increases
ускорения
from all the
центробежной
sides.
силы
And
планеты,
this is
в
exactly the
результате
results
того,
of
что она начала вращаться
acceleration of
быстрее, когда в ее
centrifugal
ядре
force of
начали
our planet.
происходить
It started to rotate faster
процессы
exactly
как
after
раз биения.
the fact that
Спасибо
the
огромное,
core of our
что
Earth
дали
is
возможность
shifting.
высказаться еще раз.
Thank you so much for
И
this
я
opportunity
еще раз благодарю всех за
to share with you this information
то, что эта
again.
конференция
And I
состоялась.
would
И
like to
призываю
express
всех
huge
людей,
gratitude
кто
for
слышит,
this
кто
conference that took
посмотрел ее,
place, and
делиться
I
дальше,
appeal to each
распространить эту
person who watched this
информацию, потому что
conference to
только
continue
знаем
to share this
правду,
information,
мы можем
because
быть
only by
подготовлены.
knowing the
Но если
truth
нам
we
врут
can
о
be
причинах,
prepared.
если мы остаемся в неведении, если
But
мы не
if
видим
we
всей картины
don't know
целиком, то у
don't have
нас
this
нет
information, if we
этого
don't have
шанса.
holistic
И
picture, we don't
поэтому
have this
как
chance.
раз
That's why it's
следующая
so important
конференция,
to
которая
share
будет
this
через
information.
ноября,
Exactly the next
называется
conference, which
«Глобальный
will take
кризис.
place in December, which
Время
called
правды». И мы
Global
приглашаем
Crisis,
всех,
the
всех
time of truth. We
здравомыслящих,
invite
мирно
everyone
душных
sane
людей и
and
особенно
caring
ученых,
people
которые
who
прекрасно
want
знают
to share this
все
information,
эти
especially
причины.
scientists
Но только
who
из-за того, что им платят, они рассказывают
know and
совершенно
aware about
другую
these
историю.
reasons, but
Спасибо
some of them
большое.
actually tell a completely
Передаю
different
слово
story.
дальше.
I give the floor to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. This looks quite scary, and to some it might looks like gloom and doom, but in fact, this is the point of the conference was not to scare anyone. It was to show the real threats that our human civilization is facing right now. And there is no doubt that everything is real because it's backed up by scientific data. We've seen specialists from all fields, all different sorts of science field, who presented the data that they cannot share otherwise, because this is not something that people being asked to talk about on the conferences. We see that on the conferences, they invite scientists only to talk about subjects like CO2 emissions because it's profitable. It's profitable for the scientists to go on the conference and talk about CO2 emissions. They're not being paid to talk about these topics. Well, in fact, the global warming caused by not just CO2 emissions, but as we heard yesterday, methane or our changes in core or the solar system changes are very, very real. And development of AI could help us overcome them, but as well might be a threat if it's going to be monopolized in hands of one or a few players on the market of IT technologies. This is very important to understand. The next thing, what we would like to talk about is one of our speakers from yesterday, Dushan, who talked about climate agenda as well, and oceans specifically. Dushan, it's a great pleasure for us to hear you, have you here back with us, and please go ahead, the floor is yours.
Спасибо за слово.
Thank you for giving me the floor. You know, here, last night, as for the climate, we only told one small part of what is actually going on in the world right now. But we had so many people working on gathering all of this information. We have to remove so much of the information so that it can fit into the format of this conference. But if we touched all the segments of everything, of the whole load, I think it could take up to a week. This is the information about what is really going on in the world. Look, today we have touched the topic of ecology. Here we have this really nice example regarding the ecology. It is actually the extension extinction of the Great Barrier Reef. Here, even the scientists have already noticed that over 77% of corals have died there. Even at school, we have all learned that life is not possible without corals. At the beaches, for example, Lisa was talking about this. Energy is coming from below the earth. Temperature is rising where? On the faults. Where is situated this great Australian reef? It's on precisely on the fault. Here's the picture. The scientists have noticed this white color. You can see it too. They also understand that something is wrong here. And I would also like to dwell a little more on Australia, as every second we have fires in Australia. There are so many fires in Australia. We have talked about this at the conference, but again, where are these fires happening? We can see on this picture that they take place on the fault. It all comes from inside the earth, from the gases emitted, and they're impossible to extinguish. And so we have this one question arising here. We have touched upon this last night a little bit, and I understand that this topic, it's not so popular at this moment, but I could compare it to an organism, to a human body. For example, I have cancer inside, right? And so I'm trying to remove this disease out of my hand instead of starting to treat this cancer. I would compare this to what is happening right now at this moment. I understand all this. From my point of view, we don't have time. We just are out of time. We need to unite as soon as possible. Everyone, honestly speaking, we have only one platform, ALLATRA. Why search for other platforms? To divide people again, just to say they're there and we are here on this platform? I think the example of 6,000 years can show us that it didn't work out. Are we going to do the same thing all over and over again? Are we going to discuss it? To discuss what? The roof is falling on our heads. We have to unite rapidly. We have to unite everyone quickly. You think we need some other discussions as to the fact that we don't have any time left? We're always smiling, saying that everything's going to be all right. Yes, I understand everything, but you know, I have participated in many interviews with scientists. I am a builder by education. I'm not a scientist, but I have been studying climate for over 7 years, and I have interviews with scientists. I'm not talking about everyone, but, you know, the scientists say, I have done my job, and that's it. And it doesn't touch me anymore. This is the problem, you know. I am doing my little thing, and what happens next, it doesn't concern me. And what about us? Are we, who are we? We have reached the verge. I understand that this is an important question. This is the truth. We have destroyed our planet. This is just bare truth. But we have a more serious problem too. It's our survival of humanity, survival of this one species, human being. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? I'm a builder. We can build a house at any point. We can plant a tree at any point. Do we have anyone who can give you back your life? Do you know such people? This is the answer. There are no such people. That's why last night, this conference, well, here I have this understanding that for us, to us as people, tens of millions have joined, of people who understand that if we don't start doing something right now, we are not going to have time for it. The most important thing is to remove our ego, because our egoism that's inside us, it's just there and it doesn't want to leave. I'm the one who's right. Why should I prove something to someone? Excuse me. We have to unite with everyone. We need to tell everyone about what is coming, because if right now we do not start doing something, then the result, I think, I think everyone who watched the conference last night understands perfectly what's going to happen. I'm sorry for what I'm saying, but and I'm talking fast. I'm sorry. So let me express my gratitude to everyone who participated. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who understood the importance of this moment, who have started right now, today, who have started talking to every person who they meet during the day to tell them about the existence of this problem and about the way out of it. And this way out of it is the creative society. The 8 foundations is the answer of all the people. All the people want to live by these foundations. We do not have any question for discussion here. So I would like to thank you all again. I'm sure that we are moving in the right direction. We are going in the right direction, and I believe we still have a chance to save this civilization and this beautiful planet that was given to us, so that we can build Eden on it here. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dushan. Thank you for the strong speech. It's important indeed, and I completely support you. We have one more speaker today. He will share with us how endogenic activity of the planet increased. It means internal activity, the eruptions increasing and earthquakes increasing, as well as expansion of the process. This is the doctor of mineralogical and geological science, Sergey Viktorovich Belov.
Здравствуйте, дорогие коллеги. Очень приятно приветствовать участников международной конференции, тема которой касается сегодня, пожалуй, каждого жителя нашей страны, так как сегодня мы живем в мире, который сильно и очень быстро изменяется. И одним из факторов вот этих изменений является, как говорят геологи, эндогенная активность Земли. В понятие эндогенной активности Земли входят такие параметры. Это вулканизм, сейсмичность, водородная дегазация из недр и потоки нейтронов внутриземного происхождения. Результаты наблюдений за главными проявлениями эндогенной активности Земли, такими как вулканизм и сейсмичность, за последние 300 лет показывают на существенный рост как числа, так и энергетики. Особенностью этого роста является близэкспоненциальный характер. То есть это достаточно резкий рост. Если мы будем говорить, возьмем последние 100 лет. За последние 100 лет число извергавшихся вулканов, например, возросло с 380 в 1908 году до 650 в 2008 году. А если мы будем говорить о сейсмичности с магнитудой 5,5, то количество землетрясений за 100 лет возросло с 300 до 3000. Таким образом, можно видеть, как идет резко этот рост.
The results of observations of major manifestations of the Earth and the genetic activities such as volcanism and seismicity over the last 6 years show a substantial increase in both number and strength. What is peculiar about this increase is that it is almost exponential, meaning the increase is quite sharp. If, say, we take the past 100 years, the number of eruption volcanoes, for example, has increased from 380 to 650 for the last 100 years. And if we talk about seismicity with the magnitude 5.5, the number of earthquakes over the last 100 years has increased from 300 to 3,000. You can see dramatic increase, but this increase is just intensifies. It happens in the background of wave function, that is the wave function overlap with the exponent, and the causes of this periodic wave oscillations, of course, both process occurring in the Sun and the process occurs in the depths of the galaxy. In turn, penetrating the iron core of the Earth, neutrinos initiate nuclear reactions in its bowels, and those nuclear reactions in the bowels of the Earth stimulate this endogenic process. Magnetic centers are formed, which eventually manifest as volcanic eruptions and tectonic activity in the form of earthquakes. A phenomenal point came out. We geologists have always been using secret 200,000 scale geological maps, the topographic maps that we made in a reference frame in 1942. Now, space geodesy, satellite geodesy show that we have inconsistencies, planning inconsistencies in maps of hundreds of meters and high altitude inconsistencies of dozens of meters. What does this tell us? That the parameters of the Earth and the cosmic body are changing. These are not simply errors in the triangulation, geodesy, and so on. This is certain evidence that these processes are taking place. And I'm really happy that I'm here today because ALLATRA is an enthusiast of concerned and caring people and address the problems that worry the entire humanity.
Сергей Викторович, спасибо вам огромное за эту теплую поддержку. Как нашего
Thank you so much for this warm support as us and as us as movement and creative society project. And I would like to share that with the works of Sergei Viktorovich, I was working with them before, and I saw the graphs which he uses in his work about the increase of volcanic activity. And I would never think that one day I would be able to meet him in person and have this wonderful interview for this conference. I'm really grateful to Sergei Viktorovich for his job, for his work, and for his sincerity, and for the fact that he is not silent. For now, this is so important for all scientists not to be silent and speak the truth.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Another important topic that was brought up yesterday is the fossil fuels and so-called the new ways of energy productions. Today we see that fossil fuels are definitely a big problem. It's a big issue for the environment, but what's the solution? Today we see electric driving vehicles, but the recycling of the batteries creates more pollution than the life cycle of a regular vehicle. We see the solar panels, but as we found out yesterday, recycling them is very problematic as well. We know that there are more advanced technologies already developed when it comes to energy production, but they are not in use for the most part. And why is that? because of economical issues. Of course, in consumerist society, the fossil fuels employ too many people, and going on a different level of energy production will simply make a collapse in this industry. But we would like to hear more about this topic from Jonathan Brivat. Please, Jonathan.
Thank you, Tali. Yes, indeed. I really wanted to bring that topic of fossil fuel and this kind of primitive way that we have of living for so long and that we're getting used to. So basically, are we considering ourselves a technological advanced civilization? I guess yes. But at the same time, we almost, all of our industry is dependent on the exhaustible natural resources. More than 60% of our energy comes from burning the earth interiors, oil, shale, coal, gas, and other combustible minerals and substances. So nor should we forget that in the current format of society, excessive overconsumption is the basis of the economy. Humanity's appetites are constantly increasing. So let's put it in perspective. Every year, we are burning as much as fuel as the planet has been accumulating over 1 million years. If we continue at the current rate of production and consumption, our reserve will run out very, very quickly. Oil, within 30 years, we're not going to have any. Gas, within 50 years, and coal within 200 years. So, does still sound advanced to you that our ever-increasing needs are based on ever-decreasing natural resources? What a paradox, don't you think? Our daily lives depends on those energy resources as we need to eat and light our homes, produce goods, fuel our cars, which put us all at risk due to an uneven distribution of resources on the planet. As mankind depends on energy resources, it leads to political and economic tensions, resulting in resource warfare. This is the harsh reality of our modern world, while multinationals, corporations, the main producer of oils in the world, make their super profits. As reserves diminished, so the risk due to their extraction increased. The oil workers have to deal with enormous pressure, high temperatures, etc. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics ranked derrick operator in oil, gas, and mining as the third deadliest job per number of workers out of all professional activities. Not only do we destroy natural reserves, but in the processing of natural resources, we also seriously pollute the environment. Harmful emission goes into the atmosphere, water, and soil, which directly affect people's life, health, and quality. For example, while automobiles are the main consumer of oil, the most advanced internal combustion engine has an efficiency of 35%. It basically means that we are not just losing 65%, but we are investing in the destruction of the environment. If now we consider, as Tali mentioned, the effectiveness of electric motors, it goes up to 90%. But we often forget that either the same oil industry or nuclear power will be used to produce or charge those batteries, which again raises a big question about environmental friendliness. As Toyota Motor Group's president, Akio Toyoda, said, the more electric vehicles we build, the worse carbon dioxide we get. When politicians are out there saying, let's get rid of all of the cars using gasoline, do they even understand this? Therefore, a doubting scientific and technological challenge arises. How to meet society's energy needs in the shortest possible time using other sources. Sheikh Hamel Yamani, former Saudi oil minister, once said, the Stone Age came to an end not for lack of stones, and the oil age will end but not for lack of oil. It means that it is crucial not to wait for our civilization to proactively leap forward in terms of technology in order to enter a new age. But what if we are already there? Indeed, technologies generating free energy with the help of fuel-free generator are already out there. This technology is already existing. It is a simple one, energy being produced freely, out of nothing. But the main question is, why don't we have access to it already? And here, we are looping back to the state of our society, where consumerism is the norm, where money is more important than people, where free energy devices are not a good business model. So let's unite and stop supporting this self-destructive society, as we are already have the technology to leap forward in terms of energy and save ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And after such an inspiring speech, I would like to ask Gerard or Narshengen, as our speakers from different parts of the world, what do you think could unite such a different people from such a different parts of the world at this topic of saving our planet? Maybe you have something to ask each other. Please feel free to go ahead.
Well, I like to mention first that what it unites us all is basically this kind of conferences and to get knowledge to a broader public. We have a new initiative called People versus Extinction that we're launching now, and this initiative, scientifically driven, is to make, our goal is to make aware for at least 4 billion people in the next 3 or 4 years of the problem, of the magnitude of extinction and how it's linked to other problems, other problems, environmental problems like climate change and so on, and to act. And so this is kind of conference is very important. I mean, right now, one of the important things is, as we have seen here, is not the science. The science is very solid. We know what is going on, and we know what is going to happen. It's basically what we need to do is to, on the one hand, educate massive amount of people and public of this, to educate the governments, and second, to act. So this is what I found this conference quite interesting. I also like to mention that we have been talking here about consumption, and that's obviously one part of the problem. But if we really like to solve this environmental problem, a long time ago, in the 1970s, Paul Ehrlich at Stanford University, he got what we call the IPAT equation, and the IPAT is the impact, human impact, is derived by 3 things. Is the people, the number of people multiplied by consumption and multiplied by technology. The more inefficient the technology is, the more impact is, the more consumption there is, the more impact is, and the more population there is, the more people there is. So we need to address the population issue. Human population has to be stabilized. Second, we have to reduce consumption, as we have been saying here. And third, we need to use better technologies. What is nice to know is that population is starting to decline naturally, and so we have to push toward that. Second, consumption is clearly the link between consumption and environmental issues is very clear. So it's been finally recognized at many levels. And finally, there is important technology. Like, let me tell you right now, I'm in a place in Mexico, far away. This is just a forest around here. I mean, there is not a single house in more than almost 8 kilometers from my house. And I'm being powered by solar panels and by satellite internet. So we can reduce our impact on the planet, okay? This is, and then my question to the other, I mean, for the people, for instance, it is, I do hope that, for instance, our colleagues that talk about the climate change or climate disruption, it will be very interesting to know. I mean, my question for them is, how how do they think is the interaction between climate disruption and species extinction, and how important they think that maintaining a natural ecosystem is to cope with climate disruption, please.
That's a very good question, Gerardo. Thank you so much. And happy to hear that you are doing everything possible to to stay within the clean energy. Narshengen, did you understand the question? And if so, please, why do you think that maintaining the ecosystem is so crucial for preserving of the of species and our ecology altogether?
Правильно ли я понимаю, что вопрос также касается того, что насколько
Do I understand correctly that the question is related to the fact that how closely connected climate change to the ecosystem extinction? If I understand correctly,
действительно сейчас изменение климата вносит из-за потепления, это вносит, делает океан во многих частях
actually making the oceans in many parts of our planet makes uninhabitable microorganisms. It's also known that after eruptions we have sudden emissions of gases such as methane, and they destroy our ecosystem. And there are actually scientists who study this phenomenon. They have noticed that in the middle of the ocean, suddenly a lot of many fish are dead, and they couldn't find out to what it is connected with. Exactly, the extinction of a large number of fishes, they took place after the earthquakes, because after the earthquakes, gas actually goes out. And as Dushan today mentioned, that there are fires in the places of flakes, exactly because of degassing. And of course, it is because of climate change, but if we talk about ecosystem, actually human activity contributes a lot to this. Everything what we pollute, produce, all the garbage and chemistry, you can even imagine yourself this cruelty with which we kill our environment. And I would like to say right now that it's a huge amount of species under the threat, under the extinction. And to the species, one of them are added, and it is human beings. So right now we need to understand our priorities. So we could at first wear a mask, as they do in the plane, wear a mask at yourself, and then save someone else. So we need to save ourselves first, and then clean our planet, and with respect with all the living things.
Thank you very much.
Чуть-чуть добавить. Конечно, полностью согласен с Лизочкой.
Yes, I would like also
Знаете, даже в конференции вчера было показано, что
and I completely agree with Елизавета. Also yesterday on the conference we were talking about the fact that in 20th century this progress increased so much
разных видов,
of the extinction of different species, that there is a main understanding, basic understanding, that the reason for this is a human. Also, you need to understand that if we don't change the relationship between us, how we treat each other, then we're not going to change anything, because it's always going to remain a small group of people who will constantly be engaged in one problem. There are such problems. For example, if we don't take care of our ecology, of our environment, then what should we do? Here, it's necessary to understand that right now there is a bigger problem, huge problem. It's actually preserving civilization, preserving human life.
сохранять эти виды, кто это будет
There
делать?
will be no one who can preserve these species if we want to resolve this bigger
Все
problem.
между собой взаимно
We need to
связано.
understand that it's
Но
everything related to each other,
нам надо
connected to each other.
понимать, что мы сейчас,
We need to understand
скажем так,
that right
на
now,
данный момент
we,
наука разделена.
for
Мы все это
example, the
понимаем.
science is
Кого
divided.
бы
We
вы ни
all understand
спрашивали,
that.
есть
It's
вот
no
там
matter whom you would
геология,
ask,
есть
there is
минералогия, есть
geology, biology,
вулканология,
mineralogy,
все возможно.
volcanology.
А почему у нас нет одна наука,
But why don't we have one
которая
science
включает все?
which includes
Тогда
everything,
мы бы решили все проблемы,
includes it all?
все.
So
У
we
нас
would
бы не было
resolve
таких
all of
проблем,
our
даже с
problems.
экологией, потому
We
что
wouldn't
у нас
have
мы бы
these
уже
problems even with
давным-давно приняли
ecology, because
решение,
long ago
как
we would already
начать
make a
действовать в этом
decision
направлении.
how to start acting
Ну, а
in this
тут,
direction.
конечно, вот может возникать очень много
And of course,
вопросов,
here
потому что я
many
понимаю, что
questions
на
may
данный
arise,
момент
because I
как
understand
бы
that
у многих людей
many people
на
right now
планете есть недопонимание того,
around
что
the planet
главное.
don't have
Если на это
an
посмотреть
understanding
с
what
точки
is most
зрения
important.
планеты, то
If you
мы
look
в конце
from the bigger perspective,
периода
as a planet as a whole, we are at the end of the cycle, 12,000-year cycle.
24-тысячного
And it's even
периода.
what is even worse.
Это, знаете,
There is
это
also
доказательства,
24,000-year
которые
cycle.
вот они
These are
просто
proofs
шокируют, что
that
мы
are
находимся
shocking.
в этом хужем
We are
виде. Тут,
really
вы знаете, нам
bad situation right now.
надо понимать, как
Here,
уже много
we need
раз
to understand
было сказано
how it was
спикерами,
said
что
many
мы на
times
одной
before.
лодке. На этой
We are on
лодке
one boat.
геологи, вулканологи,
All
экологи,
scientists, volcanologists,
врачи,
geologists, doctors,
бухгалтеры, кого бы мы ни взяли, мы на одной лодке.
accountants.
Но
It doesn't
надо
matter whom we would
понимать,
take. We
что
are all on one boat.
мы двигаемся в
And we need to
направлении
understand that
огромной
we
дыры,
move
огромной пропасти.
towards
Нам надо
huge
всем
hole
взять
and abyss.
и быстро
We
к
all need to
берегу двигаться,
take
очень быстро.
and
Потом,
quickly move
когда мы,
towards the
вы
shore,
знаете, нам
save
надо
ourselves.
сохранить в первую очередь вид
First of all,
человеческий.
we need to
Потом мы
preserve
можем все, но мы
human
уже
beings
все не
like as a
исправим. Все
species. We
равно
need to
мы не
preserve
можем
human
вернуть
civilization. We can't
назад то, что
already
мы уже
fix
сделали.
everything.
То, что мы
We
уничтожили
can
планету,
already
конечно.
put it in
Но
return. Of course,
нам
we
надо сейчас
destroyed our
сохранить
planet.
вид как человек.
But for now,
Потом,
it's most important to preserve
скажем
human
так,
beings as a
если мы
species.
объединимся,
And
вот
later,
нам,
if we unite,
мы вместе, мы построим другой мир, понимаете? Мы
we will
можем
build
даже
together
благодаря
another
вот
world.
этим знаниям, этой
Thanks to
любви,
this knowledge, thanks to
мы
this
можем,
love,
вот, нам откроется совсем другой мир. И в нем
completely different
есть,
world will be open
вы
to
знаете,
us.
вот как это рассказать словами? Тут
How
понимание
we can
того,
explain
что
it
на самом
by
деле
words?
все очень просто.
There is an understanding that
Давайте в
everything is
первую
really
очередь
simple.
сохранить вид
Let's at
человека,
first preserve
а потом мы
human
все
being
будем решать очень
as a
быстро, очень
species,
эффективно,
and then
даже с
really
помощью
effectively
этого
and quickly we will resolve all other problems.
искусства, извините, этого
Thanks to the
УИ, как в Чехии говорится,
artificial
искусственного
intelligence.
интеллекта, мы с его помощью можем
Thanks
очень
to this,
быстро,
we
даже,
will be able
я не знаю, если это правильно, но
really fast
даже можем другие виды вот,
know if it's
как
right
бы
thing to say,
сделать.
but we can even create new species.
Но тут,
with
вы знаете, тут
artificial
я
intelligence.
очень сильно волнуюсь, потому что
But here
нам
of course, I'm
сейчас
worrying
вы видите, что в СМИ показывают, какие
about
темы
this
они
because you
предлагают,
see which
что внимание
topics they
человека
show
всегда ушло
in
в
mass
другую
media, so
сторону.
the attention of a
Всегда.
human being will be constantly
Всегда что-то
directed
важнее,
somewhere
чем жизнь
else.
человека. Почему?
Always something
Как
is
бы
more
вопрос
important
простой.
than the
Почему?
life of a human being. Why it is so?
Ну, я надеюсь, хотя бы чуть-чуть ответил на ваш
I
вопрос.
hope I answered your
Вы знаете,
question
я
a bit.
уважаю всех вас, потому что вот ваш труд,
I
это
respect
вот
you
наш
all
труд, это просто
because our
мы одна большая семья.
job, everything what
Нам
we
надо
do,
сейчас понимать,
so important,
что
and
вот
we are
как уже было
all one
много
big family.
рассказано, что мы
As it was
части
said many
одной
times
руки.
before, that we are parts of
И
one
все,
arm,
вот этот один палец, второй, третий,
one
вот
finger.
мы одночасно, нам надо сейчас
We
делать
all
вот это,
one
а быстро
arm,
двигаться вот в
and we need
направлении,
to unite
чтобы
and
вот
fast,
сохранить жизнь
quickly
человека.
move towards
Потом
preserving
разберемся.
human civilization, and then we will figure out with
Спасибо
everything
большое.
else.
Спасибо, Душан. У меня есть небольшой вопрос.
So much, Dushan. I have a question
профессору
to the
Маврике.
Mr. Jen,
Мне
professor
посчастливилось
of
как-то быть на Маврике. Это потрясающий, красивый
I
вулканический
once upon
остров.
a time I
Он
was in
находится
this
на
island. It's a beautiful
вулканической
volcanic
зоне.
island. It's
Скажите,
located
пожалуйста,
in
есть ли
the
сейчас
volcanic
серьезное
zone.
изучение
Could you please
вулканической
tell us, is
активности
there is a serious
под
study of the
Маврике?
volcanic activity in Mauritius?
Yeah, you see, in Mauritius, fortunately, I would say for the time being, we have what some people would qualify as being dead volcanoes. But we know you are the specialist. I think you will tell people that this concept, I'm speaking under your correction, we don't have this concept of dead volcanoes. At any time, there can be an eruption. But we've got a sister island around 40 kilometers from Mauritius, which is known as Réunion Island, which is a department of France. And there we've got an active volcano. So I would say for the time being, in Mauritius, this does not affect us that much, but let's hope that this will continue. But unfortunately, in Réunion Island, which is very near Mauritius, we have volcanoes. Now, regarding, I think it's connected also to earthquakes. For the time being, at times we have been witnessing some tremors at the sea, but not on land. So, in spite of the fact that we are an island of volcanic origin, we are not suffering from any sort of direct impact for the time being. And let us, regarding the environment and the sort, you see there is a sort of dialectical relationship between the ecosystem and the environment. Now, the problem one way at the same time, it's good. I think the question asked by one of our friends on the platform is good, the initiative of you people trying to bring on board people from different perspectives. But I think overall what I could gather yesterday, we have like-minded people. You see, in life, even with my 10 fingers, I may not agree with all the 10 fingers. In my family, I've got 3 kids. I may not agree with all, but I think the way I've been able to bring them up, we agree on the core values. And what I noticed yesterday, the majority of people, we are agreeing on the core values. And I believe in education, whether at the level of my country or at world level. I think the great thing with this conference, online conference, is that we are getting people together, agreeing on core principles. We can beg to disagree on modalities, but then here also, I think where there is a will, there is a way. We can find some, because the world, human being, unlike animals, other animals, and we have to respect other animals also. So you see, we have to develop a very holistic concept. We should not think only about we human beings. We should not only think about the human species. Yes, the human species, but also other animal species. All are interconnected. I may be on an island in Mauritius, like what happened in when there was the major problem with the problem in, I think, in Ukraine with atomic sort of pollution.
Yes,
this affected the whole world. not only one specific country. All the countries are interconnected, and all the species are interconnected. And my own view is, this is very personal, I don't only have a sort of consciousness for human being and mankind on this planet. I always believe that if other lives exist in other planets, we should have a sort of cosmic consciousness. I know in some religions, one or two religions preach that sort of cosmic consciousness. So this is very important for, like-minded people to come on a platform. Now, coming this also to the issue which was raised on green economy. Now, why green economy? I would have understood that when you want to make a paradigm shift, let's say from one type of energy, fossil energy, to solar energy or to electrical energy, yes, maybe it's good. But at the same time, why green economy? The focus is not on strategy. The focus is not on green policies, but on economy. Again, I come back on this problem. Some developed countries, they have been focusing on these strategies, on these technologies 20, 25 years back. Now they have got an edge, and instead of dissipating, transferring the technology to poor countries, to developing countries, they keep it for themselves, and the focus is just to make profit. The focus is not to help humanity. The focus is not to help to solve the problem of pollution. But the focus is how to make profits by major multinationals, by developed countries which have got an edge, and you want the poor countries, you want the poor nations to make even more sacrifices. So we are in a major dilemma. And how do you want to have peace in the world? And this is also connected. When we talk about energy, when we talk about technology, it is related to peace. Now, what is happening slowly and slowly every day, this is what I call structural violence coming from different people, different countries. But when a person or a group or a small country or a country which is for the time being classified as a terrorist country, when they want to express themselves with violence, then we call this violence. I'm not condoning, I'm all for peace. But when we talk about peace, we have to talk about real peace, genuine peace. So, unfortunately, for the time being, a few people, few countries are taking advantage of the system. And this is where I have hope, where people like I saw yesterday, they are trying to think out of the box. When we mention about a creative society, it doesn't mean only to look at futuristic things, but also to take the old things, try to polish up, try to correct, try to remedy. And this is what is creativity. Creativity does not mean only about AI. Yeah, AI is very important. I'm not trying to downplay AI. It's very important, but also let us, for example, focus on production. Have to instead of rich countries, for example, trying to squander and to spoil, to throw food in the ocean instead of distributing it to countries in Africa. We have to find means to optimize production, to distribute, to reduce the inequalities in terms of salaries, in terms of wealth among countries, but also at the domestic level. So both at domestic, regional, and international level. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your insight on that topic. We're coming to an end to this roundtable, so I would like to kind of summarize the idea that has been brought up today. And basically the way out for us today is really to bring all of humanity together and develop technology. So in what way do we need to develop this technology now? So AI, is it for the enslavement of humanity, or in a more creative format compared to a consumerism format that we have today, would be more to help a lot to get through this period of cataclysm. Once again, the crises that we are facing, global digitalization, environmental collapse, and climate apocalypse. So over the next 10 days, every day, we are going to have those international roundtable discussion with conference speakers, experts, scientists on all of those topics. So please join us, share those conferences to as many people as you can. Another thing that I wanted to mention regarding to the conference yesterday is very valuable for us to get your feedback, the same way that we voiced them today during this roundtable, but individual feedback for all of the viewers of this conference. So please share them, make a video, send it to us at ALLATRA Unite for us to really understand how did you perceive this conference and how for us to best create another conference on the 4th of December on another topic. So please make sure that you can share those feedback. Is very valuable for us. Thank you very much again for all of our speakers today, for those great information that you've shared on the top of the conference that happened yesterday, and see you then very soon on the next International Roundtable.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.